The man many see as the face of the pro-Brexit campaign, the former UKIP leader Nigel Farage, spoke to me earlier this evening in the week that the EU withdrawal bill received royal assent.
I feel relieved, as many leavers will, that we're on track to leave. That's the good news. The bad news is, what kind of Brexit are we headed for? And I'm afraid that what Monsieur Barnier has done is he's picked up the issue of the Irish border. He's negotiated cleverly, he's boxed the Prime Minister in, and it's on that issue that we risk finishing up, still stayed, tied up with single market rules and everything else. So it's now time for the British Prime Minister to come back with a fresh initiative.
Are you suggesting there that it is your view that the Irish border, the importance of the Irish border is being overplayed for political reasons?
Absolutely. Oh, completely. I mean, look, already we have, on the Irish border, different income tax rates, different corporate tax rates, a different VAT regime, and a different currency. There are already big differences over that border, but businesses and people live with it. If there was a tariff regime, that is just one more difference.
It's a huge difference, though. It's a massive difference. The movement of goods and services across an international frontier is very different.
Look at Detroit. Look at that bridge from Canada across to America. Every day, vast amounts of agricultural goods go over that bridge. There's no need for inspection points or hard borders. We're living in a very different age. But I do think this. I do think what the British government now ought to do is to say to Brussels, OK, whatever you want to do with us on the big picture of an EU deal, why can an exemption not be made specifically for Irish agriculture?
So you're conceding yourself that concessions need to be made, that it isn't straightforward and that there does need to be negotiation. You've thrown one into the pot. There are countless others that I could come back with.
I mean, look, it's not a concession, it's a grown-up approach to the future. Look, I mean, actually, I'll tell you something, I'm really beginning to think, maybe what the United Kingdom needs to do as a whole is to say to the whole European Union, we're not going to put a tariff regime in place, we're not going to have huge queues at our borders, and we challenge you to match us.
So you would actually like to see the UK government not do a deal with the EU? What would suit your purposes, and perhaps many Brexiteers within the Cabinet and within the Conservative Party, is to see the UK crashing out and some kind of operation under WTO rules. Is that really what you want?
You and I can sit down and thrash out a deal if you want to do a deal and I want to do a deal. The reality is that Monsieur Barnier does not want to do a reasonable deal. We're not working with
that, but I mean, he would say that that's absolutely not the case. Well, and the EU27 are solid on this.
Well, actually, I'm not so sure they are. There's a brand new government that's come in Italy that is actually quite keen for a deal to be done. There are big European businesses who are keen for a deal to be done. I just think what we need to do is to grab the initiative, and we can do it by saying, do you know what, guys? We're the ones that is going to make a very generous offer on trade, and we'll do that, but we're not going to be tied to single market rules because that's impossible. You know, we voted to have a separate make-up for the United Kingdom, and we need to be free to pursue global trade.
Yeah, but I mean, what your critics would say is that you want the bits that suit you very well. You'd like the best possible trade deal on the circumstances that suit you best. You don't want to get tied into the single market. You want to be free to go off to do global trade if you want. So you want to have your cake and you want to eat it. You want to take everything you get from the European Union and frankly give them the two fingers in return.
Well, actually, what I'm saying to Irish beef producers, French winemakers, German car manufacturers and Belgian sellers a bit of chocolate, what I'm saying to all those people is, you talk about the UK market as being Treasure Island. We, out of the kindness of our heart and our belief in free trade, will let you go on doing it. And that would be a very big, generous offer, and we need to think about it.
Well, we've had big companies like BMW and Siemens and Airbus saying they've got major problems with it.
Airbus is a political company sponsored by
Airbus
billions.
is a business. It's a business.
Well, not really, no. It's actually a political operation sponsored by billions of euros.
It's a business.
By billions of euros of money. Oh, and by the way, under World Trade Organization rules, aerospace products are tariff-free, and most of the engines are made in America. So that argument...
So now business is more interested in politics than business, you're telling me?
Airbus is a purely political company. BMW, well, somebody from BMW said, we might pull out of the UK. 48 hours later, the big boss says, no, we're absolutely committed to a future. There are lots of games and lots of lobbying going on here. There always are.
Sure.
Look,
if you were a worker in the UK and you worked for Siemens or BMW or Airbus, you might be concerned at the moment, and you might be inclined to believe the people who run your business.
Well, if I work for BMW...
More than someone like you, with the greatest respect.
Well, they tried this, you see, 20 years ago with the Euro. They tried this. Nissan threatened that unless we join the Euro, they might pull their production. They haven't done it. And sometimes these businesses are as much lobbyists as they are businesses.
Okay, let's talk about the backstop, which was put in place at a summit in December of last year. And since then, there doesn't seem to be very much agreement about precisely what was agreed. Where are you on that? What precisely do you understand the backstop to be, and what are the circumstances where you would see it as a good thing?
Well, unlike Mrs. May, I worked in private business. The very fact she even conceded the backstop was sheer madness, because now there is a big incentive on Barnier to make sure there is no deal and we stay aligned to single market rules. I mean, let's be honest about this. With the use of the Irish border particularly, we have been outplayed and outfoxed thus far in these negotiations.
Because it seems very unclear what the UK's position is on a backstop. I mean, you're just telling me that your understanding is that if there's no deal, the backstop comes into play. There are those in the UK government who would say, if there's no deal, there's no backstop.
Well, in a way, haven't you just summed up the problem? That what we all want to know from the British government is exactly what is their position.
You're not helping, that's the difficulty.
Well, no,
you're muddying the waters.
No,
Boris,
no,
David Davis.
Staying aligned to single market rules is not what we voted for. Simple as. We voted to make our own laws, control our own borders, do our own trade deals. And it's very simple what we voted for. Now the government have to deliver that.
Okay, let me ask you just finally about your great friends in the DUP. That's what you've tweeted about them. It's obvious that you've got a very warm relationship with them. Let me ask you about your relationship with the DUP and your understanding of the border on the island of Ireland. Have you been there recently, talked to people on the ground, listened to both views in this debate?
Of course, and they want tariff-free trade and as fewer obstacles as possible, but nobody in the DUP wants a hard border, wants soldiers back on the border. This is an invention of Monsieur Barnier's being used.
But it's not an invention of the Chief Constable, George Hamilton, who said again this week he's concerned that he will require extra officers on the ground to deal with the situation if Brexit turns out the way people don't want it.
Why?
Because there would be extra infrastructure on the border, because extra checks would have to be there, and he would have to protect people who would become a threat. Well, that's the Chief Constable speaking, not me.
Yeah. Do you know something? Go to Felixstowe. See those massive 10,000 container ships coming in from China and being put on lorries and on the road within minutes.
Yeah, but to make that analogy suggests to me you don't really understand the border. Felixstowe is not Northern Ireland.
We don't check the containers coming in from China. We trust people in business to make honest declarations. That is the modern technological world that we live in.
You know about the history of the Northern Ireland border, the border in Ireland?
Yes, and I've no desire to put a hard border back any more than anybody in Northern Ireland has.
Okay. Good to talk to you, Nigel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.